Okay, so welcome here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started. See, we appear to have somewhere around 40 participants in this. Um, of course, this is the very first live stream that we've had regarding a school reopening process under pandemic conditions. Um, my name is Kevin Rice. I'm the executive director here at Still Center for Career and Technical Education. And we're very happy to be able to bring you this information this evening. We have targeted primarily our audience. Our target audience would be students and families. A Steele Center, obviously, students enrolled in districts. The group would include first-year students, second and third-year students. This live stream is being recorded. It will be available on our YouTube page and our website following this. So we had some questions about that earlier. First, I want to apologize for the delay. We experienced some technical difficulties here in getting things set up and off the ground this evening. So again, for those of you that are participating in this, I thank you for your patience. I'm going to try and make this, as painless as possible and really try and make good use of your time. You've received information already from us via mail. We will continue to send out mail to you directly, as well as to put out our automated calls. And I'm speaking, I guess, for newer Steele Center students and their families. Our established students and families are already aware of our communication tools. And we've got a Blackboard Connect system here by which we send out automated calls, very similar to what you've experienced in your school districts that you live in. So again, there's an opportunity that we're going to have to continue to have communication with you. We're going to spend some time this evening unpacking a little bit the reopening plans for Still Center. We've, given a title to our reopening activities here, and that really, centers around and is linked to a very important theme here at Steele Center, which is the pathway to success. A few years back, maybe 2-3 years ago, we were working on our most updated strategic plan or comprehensive plan, and when you work on that document, you create and update your vision statement and mission statements, and the group of stakeholders, which included students, community, business leaders, our staff. We really felt strongly about what occurs here at Steele Center, and that is that we provide that pathway to success for young men and women, folks that attend our school while they're in high school. There's an abundance of opportunities available to students by attending Steele Center, whereas, perhaps in years or decades prior to now, career and technical education, formerly called vocational education, was viewed by some as an option that's less desirable, that's not as challenging, and quite honestly, and you'll hear this is a reoccurring theme as you saw it in the letter that was sent out to the families. We learned real quickly in the spring, whenever the country and the state and our local communities started to shut down, quite honestly, that a new group of individuals emerged and became very critical to keeping our country and our communities thriving. And that is a group that's referred to as essential workers. What essential workers means to us now is it's a term we really weren't familiar with 5-6 months ago, prior to COVID-19. But whereas we as I shared it in the letter to you, and this is all very realistic and very factual, truthful information, whereas members of our communities and families were experiencing separation from employment, falling on hard times, Steele Center students that were still enrolled in high school programs that were learning online while they were, trying to navigate through their high school classes were being hired in full-time jobs, some receiving sign-on bonuses. And I quoted that in the letter. I was standing in the yard of a young lady back in June as we celebrated our seniors, and that young lady received a $2,400 signing bonus. That was made possible by her education here at Still Center, and the efforts of our faculty, our staff, our work-based learning coordinator. While people were losing jobs, Steele Center students, even underclassmen, were being invited to participate in job interviews via Zoom and being hired through those interviews. So as I talk about the planning and what's to be expected coming up this school year, I do so with the backdrop and not forgetting, being very mindful of who and what we are here at Steele Center and what kind of learning takes place. And as we unpack again our reopening plans, it's just very important that we keep that in mind as we talk about what is the best option for students given the current circumstances. I'll be quite blunt, and I think that all of you that are participating in this and that will watch this recorded version of this presentation, we all agree none of us wants to be in the situation that we're in. Our lives have all been impacted very, very abruptly and negatively in many ways. And yet we're in the situation that we have here at hand. And we're going to deal with that as true to form, for America and for our strong communities here at Steele Center. We're going to deal with that in a very proactive way and be very positive and productive in how we survive this period of time and not just survive, but thrive. So what I'm going to do at this point is share the screen. Now, let me back up, sort of a housekeeping issue. So the information you received included communication that there would be questions. And that was something we were trying to work out some bugs with, taking questions in real time live. And it seems like we're not going to be able to do that. However, that's not to say that your questions are not going to be answered. One way that we're going to answer your questions, many of you, hundreds and hundreds of you, have replied to the survey that's on our website. And one of the fields in that survey gave you an opportunity, the last prompt gave you an opportunity to raise concerns and questions. So those questions and concerns, as we've reviewed those, there's a lot of commonalities and themes throughout them. So we're going to try and unpack and answer those questions during our time here this evening. And then beyond that, I'll repost my email address. It's at the end of this, the PowerPoint, and make sure that we have that communication available. And I would invite you to email directly the questions and concerns you're going to have. Hopefully, once we get through sharing out some of the information regarding our planning, that's going to answer some of your questions and hopefully alleviate some of your concerns. And moving forward beyond this discussion, again, we're going to continue to maintain that open line of communication. Another editorial note, the presentation that's been prepared for you tonight, as you can imagine, there's a overwhelming abundance of tasks that school leaders are faced with, and I've lost track of how many hours today I've spent in front of Zoom. It's certainly well beyond 6 hours, 7 hours of time in meetings, and also as we progress towards the first day of learning here at Steele Center, we have and will continue to experience changes in planning, changes in reality. As we've all come to expect, our guidance comes to us from the federal and state and county governments, and oftentimes those decisions and guidance that we receive from those government bodies will dictate changes to our planning. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. Again, I'm going to try and keep the presentation itself to about 30 minutes. What was advertised was a time period blocked off from 7 to 8. The presentation portion itself should last until 8, and then again, the Q&A portion that we were trying to make possible is ran into some glitches with that. So we're going to invite you and those those that have the desire to send emails in, and we will answer those questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen at this point, which is going to provide for you and sort of serve as a guide, not just simply going to obviously talk to you. We're going to use a PowerPoint to just share out information. And then, as you're aware, you've already received information from us in the mail. Information has been posted that way. We will, we're doing some edits to our website, but we're creating, and I hope to have it complete by the end of this week, a school reopening section or page of our website, much like we had the COVID-19 section on our website for those students that were involved in Still Center in the spring. But we'll have a school reopening section. It should be up and running any day now, and that will be a place to go for information. And of course, we'll continue to reach out to you, via the Blackboard Connect. So let's talk about a couple aspects of reopening. Again, I share with you that we really want to underscore the theme of our reopening. We are reopening the pathway to success, as mentioned when we got off to the start here. The reality and some of this information is very obvious to us, but I just want to make sure that we frame our discussion correctly. Obviously our world has been turned upside down since March 13th. Public education has been forced to operate differently. We're not able to do what we need to do. I mean, in the spring, many of us had children. We saw our senior class and a number of people that are part of the Still Center family have family members that graduated high school. Obviously, graduation happened differently, instruction happened differently, and as we restart the new school year, we're going to be operating differently. There's no question about it. I'll again reiterate, career technical education, is more valuable now than ever, and I can't stress that enough. We have a continual flow of contacts from business and industry partners that have reached out to us, and they're looking for, not just graduates, but even they're asking about interns and our cooperative education placement students for the upcoming school year. Are we doing that? Again, I don't want to pick on a field, but I'm not sure if I were to have just completed a degree in anthropology, if I would be able to find successful employment in Western Pennsylvania at this time. It's probably not going to happen. However, our healthcare professionals in particular, our construction folks with the technical background, electricians, heating and air conditioning professionals, auto mechanics, high demand right now. There's hiring happening. So we've never been so valuable. I want to be clear with you all. And as we tackle the questions that have come in through the survey, and likely I'll continue to get questions posed to me, Mr. Rice, how are you possibly going to deliver the what we call kinesthetic learning or hands-on learning? How is that possible? And I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Our reality is that we don't have the power to make decisions to teach exactly the way we know we do best, which is face-to-face. The circumstances of COVID-19 have prohibited that from happening. And so what's going to happen here in some way, is obviously a less than perfect delivery of career and technical education. It's not going to be what we normally do. It's not business as usual, and nor are the classes and programs at your high schools business as usual. There's a lot of speculation about the future of fall sports, and they've already been impacted, and schedules have been changed, and so that's not business as usual. Nothing about what we're dealing with is business as usual. Yet at the same time, a less than perfect career and technical education program has value, and certainly if your career goal is to work in the construction field, in the healthcare field, in the hospitality industry, in the technologies that we offer here through computer technology, our advertising and design. If that's your career goal, this is still your best option. I want to underscore that because, we're going to unpack and talk about the various elements of both educational options that students have currently coming into the school year, the two lanes of our pathway to success. And yes, it's true that students that are learning remotely are not going to get what they would normally get, and they're not going to get exactly the same experience as if they were here in person, with those students that are on the hybrid option. It's still the best option for you if your desire is to pursue a career in the healthcare field, in the hospitality industry, again, all of our programs. So I want to underscore that's our reality. And, you are going to get the absolute best learning experiences possible under the circumstances until we're able to resume regular operations. And those of you that are new students, and I'll assume that some of you on this live stream are new students or families, you're in for an incredible experience as a member of the Still Center educational community. You are going to encounter extremely talented and very caring teachers and support staff and educators and leaders and counselors here. I can't say enough about all of the work, and it's really the whole team here, and we talked about essential workers, and I tell you, our maintenance and custodial staff are second to none. Our office staff and support staff really make it go here and make it happen. Our instructional aides are really part of the backbone of this operation, and all the other support staff, our learning facilitators, our school counselor is world class. Our work-based learning coordinator is incredible, and again, very gifted in the work that she does. And of course, our teachers. It really starts with our teachers, and there's a high standard here that we've set, and that the bar is often reached for excellence because of those teachers and the rest of the staff I mentioned. And the administrators here aren't too bad either. So I just want to give you that kind of precursor to our discussion. Let's just, reflect for a moment on what's real here. And this comes to us, a quote I selected from Nelson Mandela. Those of you that are younger probably read about him in history books, but Nelson Mandela is regarded by many as a very courageous individual. And what Mandela has learned and shares in this quote that I've selected for our presentation is really the courage that he faced, and courage that any of us have is not really an absence of fear, but it's the fact that we can triumph over fear. The brave man or woman or person is not a person who does not feel afraid, but that is a person that conquers the fear. And as we come into this school year, I'm a parent first and foremost. The most important parts of our lives, I really believe, are our families, and I'm a parent. I've got a school-aged child. I also have a young lady who just graduated high school who's about to continue her journey in her education. And so as a parent, I understand the fears that parents have. What's going to happen when I put my kid on the bus? If I choose a remote-only option, how do I keep my kid motivated? Are they getting a good education? Those are all fears. And as a staff member here at Steele Center, I can speak for the others and say that we would be lying if we say we don't have any concerns or fears just about the challenges we face. But it is with bravery that all of us are going to conquer what's ahead of us. And that's really what's going to make us courageous. It's really not the absence of the fear. We want to reconnect with students. The success of our student, the success of all of each student here is really the centerpiece of our work at Steele Center. And this is a fun place to learn. It's a productive place to learn. Those of you that are returning students know that. The new incoming students, I assure you that your time here over the course of the next 2 or 3 years are going to be well worth the effort that you put into it. But we want to reconnect with our students, and that really is an underlying theme of our plan. A few guiding principles that needed to be put into place as we started our planning process. Truly, the safety and well-being of all folks involved, whether students, employees, even visitors, whether you're a parent coming to pick a child up or whatever, you're going to visit the school for some other reason. But really, the safety of everybody is a paramount. It's the number one guiding principle. And right there behind it, is the high quality and, teaching rigorous learning experiences. We have essential standards here at Steele Center. We have assessments. Those are ways that both, we measure learning while you're learning it, and we want to ensure that we continue those practices of high quality teaching, albeit in a modified fashion. We also want to promote equity and accessibility for learning to all of our students. And so whereas in the spring, students were forced to have to change how they learn, we know that our school districts have all done an excellent job of preparing their return to school plans, and we're a part of that. And whereas students will need devices if they're learning remotely, can and will and should have access to those devices. We just really want to promote equity, and that was a guiding principle. Along with the instructional delivery systems that really are needed here to meet all the needs of our students. We had to ensure in reopening our guiding principles, our planning, continuity with our member school districts. And as much as we are able to, our plan is dynamic enough that it responds to each member school district's plans. Of course, we have 10 high schools within our member school district consortium, and those 10 high schools are not doing exactly the same thing. And that is part of the challenge. That's one of the reasons why it was slow to get some information out to all of you. We were glad to do that last week. We would have preferred to have it out earlier, but in part some of our planning has involved just really being patient and working with our member districts on their plans for reopening. And of course, underlying our plan and guiding principle of, is fostering these positive relationships that we know are important to make things successful here this year. A few things I would connect you with is the idea, again, to reiterate some of those guiding principles, that the foundation of this pyramid, if you will, is safety, and a building block in that process is to have effective policies in place, whether we're adopting some new policies or, really depending on policies we have in place, the relationships that we have with our students, with our staff, among our member districts. Those are all really the foundation that are going to make the learning possible. Just important. So I want to talk a little bit about the reopening process, and I'm going to multitask here and jump over to another screen just to share. So as you might imagine, as the school year ended in June, we were certainly challenged with, wrapping up the activities of the school year and, celebrating our seniors and so on. So the reopening planning process really began, while we were still ending last school year. We spent the month of June primarily doing a lot of data collection. The state released some guidelines for reopening planning. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We worked closely with, again, Allegheny County Health Department throughout June, July, and to this day. There are regular meetings. I mentioned that earlier, not to complain, but this Zoom is really the name of the game for school leaders over the summer and for a lot of individuals. And the folks you see on this screen here, some of which are typical employees that typically work in the summer, some are not, but we're willing volunteers to just assist in our reopening planning and to give us, perspectives, to give us guidance. School leaders cannot develop these plans on their own. We rely on our stakeholder group just to make sure we're being responsive. So as families and students, you're aware that you received, and many of you participated in a survey that we put out there to families in the end of June, beginning of July. We also surveyed our staff in July. We've done another, again, student survey that's out there now. The closing window on that is this week. So the inputs have been important to come from all directions: healthcare providers and professionals and experts, our member districts, county, state, federal government guidance, our employees, our families. And as you see there, that's just some of the process we've gone through. In the month of July, of course, we did a lot of, synthesizing that information and writing. And again, we continue to update. What you'll hear oftentimes from people in my position as school leaders, the information I'm sharing with you is accurate, and I'm willing to stake my name on it as of 7:55 on August the 4th. Because again, there's a real, as we ride this out, there's sudden shifts and different nuances that we have to be responsive to, and one of which I'll talk here in a few minutes about. Some guiding documents that went into this. Again, information that has informed our planning, in addition to our member school districts and some of them I mentioned. Obviously, the CDC, Department of Health, Department of Education, and Allegheny County. We continue to monitor the guidance we get from these agencies, and we'll continue to have to modify planning as that occurs. So, the plan itself, the document, we intend to post that on our website tomorrow, probably late afternoon is our target. Full disclosure is it will not be board approved until next Tuesday. But I do want to get the draft of it out there that our board will be also looking at. And, it'll be an approval form. We've got some additional edits that we're making throughout today and tomorrow. And again, there's a very fast pace to the work involved in reopening. But that whole plan document will be available for you to review, hopefully and intentionally here tomorrow, late afternoon, or certainly by this time tomorrow. The plan is you've heard, reopening the pathway to success. We're focusing on what we're calling here. Oops. Sorry about that. One pathway to success with 2 lanes. And what does that look like? And also, full disclosure, some of you, if you're a student or family in the Steel Valley School District, their board has approved their plan. It's already up on their website. I believe the same is true of maybe Bethel Park. I'm not sure all of them that have approved their plans, but as that's happening, continue to look through information on your district's website, and you'll see some similarities to our plan document and our planning process. And there's, as I mentioned, the Department of Education put out guidance in June. Really, collectively, as a body of public education, they wanted there to be consistency in certain themes as we have our plans developed. So let's talk a little bit about, within the plan, there's prevention practices that are very key. And if I may, I want to quote Dr. Deborah Bodkin. She's Allegheny County. The director of the Department of Health for Allegheny County. And you see Dr. Bodkin on TV oftentimes regarding this situation. And I meant to include her quote in this PowerPoint, but didn't. But, which she shared with us, I mentioned the meetings, we have at least one, if not more, meetings a week as a county with all the superintendents and my fellow CTC directors from the other 3 centers in the county. We have meetings with, all the directors in Western Pennsylvania statewide. But when Dr. Bodkin meets with us on Thursdays, she said this last week that really we have to have realistic expectations. COVID-19 is here and it's not going anywhere. It's in our communities and it's going to be invading our schools. There's no way around that. What we have to do is to focus on the mitigation strategies, the mitigation efforts. And, that's, why I'm mentioning that at this time with the prevention practices. We're on uncharted territory, and there's not a 100% guarantee that folks are not going to contract or become COVID-19 positive. That said, as we learn more about the disease, testing positive is not a death sentence. It's certainly to be taken very seriously. And it caused a lot of tragedy, in our country, in our communities, in our county. But again, a simple positive diagnosis is not a death sentence. So what are those mitigation strategies Dr. Bodkin refers to? Social distance. Here at Still Center, and again, the state gave us the expectation, the guideline, where feasible, when feasible. So as we have been planning and working through the process, not all of our students are obviously going to be here all at one time, either morning or afternoon sessions. That's going to enable us to really practice that social distancing. And we're being very mindful as we roll out our arrival and departure schedules for buses to move traffic through the hallways in a way that supports social distance. The hygiene practices of our students and staff are extremely important. And they are among some of the very best strategies to mitigate and reduce your chances of catching COVID-19. And it's just simply washing hands, using sanitizer, those kinds of things. Now, facial coverings, again, that's a mandate by the state. We also are supporting that. So Still Center is providing masks. We have lots of masks. And they're cloth masks. They're not the cheap plastic or paper ones. They're reusable. They can be washed. And if you use it up or you lose it, we have another one for you. I'm not going to share the number, but I can tell you that it's going to be next to impossible for us to run out of masks this school year. And I mean that very sincerely. We're also buying face shields. So as guidance from the state came out to us regarding this, some folks have difficulty with masks. It's acceptable under state guidelines to use the face shields as a facial covering. And are you going to have to buy that for your son or daughter, your child? No, you're not. We will provide that here at Still Center along with the masks. If you really want to go wild and super protect yourself, a mask and a face shield. That's something that would be looked at as a really good practice. But we're certainly of the belief, and that's supported by medical experts, that one or the other is acceptable. We'll be using, as part of our prevention practices, social media and other communications to inform parents, students about things happening here, prevention measures, hygiene, our school-specific protocols. Again, I mentioned the reopening section of the website is due to reopen here, or launch this week. And then there you're going to find more, forms, papers, guidance, documents and the information. We want to encourage COVID-19 testing for individuals that may be in a risk category. If you believe you've been around someone, obviously, if you've been involved in contact tracing, then you've had to be tested. If you've traveled to high-risk areas, the so-called hotspots. So we want to encourage testing as part of prevention. And again, cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, ventilation. These are part of our plan, aspects of our plan. We could talk in some greater detail here, and I think in a slide or two I'm going to. You should know that we've purchased disinfection supplies through approved vendors that meet standards of OSHA and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention regarding COVID-19. So we've been getting well stocked here with supplies and equipment. As the school year begins, we're going to have to run our 2 shifts of maintenance, and service employees are going to clean assigned spaces daily. There's going to be additional cleaning to high touch areas on a daily basis. In addition to daily cleaning, there's going to be deep cleaning on Tuesday nights, Wednesdays, while students are working remotely, and on Fridays. We've invested in additional disinfectant sprayers, electrostatic sprayers. The website survey was, sharing of tools and things like that. The electrostatic sprayers it's a strategy, and it's a solution that's being put in to place out in industry. And if you've seen, they're like a fogger, but they create this material that attaches itself to the tools into other areas that you really can't wipe down or touch. So the electrostatic is a recommended practice by CDC. We moved to no-touch restroom cleaners to disinfect areas. We're looking at specific members of our employees to be reassigned during the workday to maintain cleanliness in the building while it's occupied. Our teachers and others will perform targeted cleaning in their areas. Our staff here are very caring individuals, and really are eager to do what's right for everyone. And so where we're going to need that's going to be mean that there's some additional cleaning in those areas, especially in between the morning and afternoon session. And with Chromebooks, we'll talk about that in a minute here. So just some more of our prevention strategies. Again, all of our staff members some already have, and others will receive professional development training. We're doing training through an online provider that we have. We also have in-person training or one-on-one training or small group training that's going to be made available. The training will be documented, kept on file to make sure that we do it correctly. Non-custodial staff will be trained in whom to contact if suspected case of COVID-19 appears. And I don't have all of the details on our contact tracing and our decision tree. That will be posted to the website later this week. And basically it walks through step by step what to happen if someone comes down with COVID-19 or we believe that we have symptoms. So let's unpack a little bit about the models. You saw this information on our website. And again, within the framework of a pathway to success this year, there's 2 lanes that are going to get the kids to their goals. And again, the goals in this space, in this discussion, obviously employment and apprenticeship and military are worthwhile goals. Those are outcomes that happen for Steele Center kids, along with those who want to go to trade school, community college, or college and universities. The so-called OLVO tech model wasn't built for, even though it was still a possibility, but it wasn't a typical or even well thought of outcome that a kid's going to come to Steele Center and go on to receive a 4-year degree or master's beyond graduate level degrees. Yet that in fact happens on a regular basis with Steele Center graduates. Many of our seniors go on to those kind of outcomes. But certainly the most important thing that I can reiterate here is the essential workers that are going to be leaving here and moving into that field. So as we look at what does it mean, the in-person, face-to-face, both of these options have a lot of similarities. Lane 1 is going to provide that face-to-face instruction, and it's going to do so following the high school schedule. And what I mean by that is each of your plans, and this is where you're going to need to be mindful of the plans of your district. I'll give an example here. The Baldwin-Whitehall School District is separating their high school students into 2 groups. One group, I believe they're referred to as Group A, will be going to Baldwin High School on Mondays and Tuesdays. And Group B will be going to Baldwin High School on Thursdays and Fridays. And for the most part on Wednesdays, our schedule reflects Baldwin, where there's not scheduled class live in person on Wednesdays. So if you're a Baldwin student in Group 1, you'll be coming to Steele Center the same days that you go to Baldwin. If you're in Group 2 at Baldwin, you'll be going to Steele Center the same days that you go to Baldwin, which would be Thursday and Friday. And the days that you're not at Steele Center, you'll be learning through our remote learning activities. Again, I go back to the foundational discussion at the beginning. Is this what we want to be offering? Is this really where we wish things were? Absolutely not. We do what we do at Steele Center best when we have the kiddos in the building here 5 days a week under our normal conditions. But there's nothing about this last 5 months that's been normal for any of us. So within the limitations that we all are facing, we are going to provide the absolute best and highest quality career and technical education that these students deserve to have and will have. So a student from Baldwin in Group A will be here those days. Now, other students are going to follow their schedule based on their high school initiatives or their high school reopening plans. And that's going to vary. So I just gave Baldwin as an example. It's going to, again, depend on a case-by-case of each student within their schools. We are working with the districts. Again, continuity with them is a key to making this happen. And so South Park students, for example, are going to be attending South Park High School in either a Group A, which I'm not sure if they're calling them A, I can't remember, but the first group will be Mondays and Wednesdays. The other group is Tuesday and Thursday. So what does the Monday South Park group do on Wednesdays? Well, we're not open. We're not open. We're not receiving students here live for live instruction on Wednesdays. That's deep cleaning and remote planning and all these other activities. So we'll be working with, and I spoke with Mr. Godovic, superintendent from South Park, specifically about that issue, to work and coordinate transportation for South Park students that are part of that group that goes to South Park on Mondays and Wednesdays to be here on Fridays. So transportation will be made available. And that, again, that's another indicator or sign of how really complicated and dynamic the planning has to be for making this happen. So that's the schedule and how that's going to work. Our curriculum at Steele Center is a state-approved curriculum. We're subject to scrutiny by the Department of Education. We get renewed every 5 years. And so whether you're in the hybrid or whether you're in the remote, the curriculum is the curriculum. The instructional and learning activities are going to vary, and there's some difference, obviously, between the two, but the curriculum is the same. So, if you're a new student here and you thought you were coming here because you didn't want to read, you're going to have to read. There's a lot of reading involved in Steele Center classes. The vocabulary, the terminology, many of those other types of what we call theory activities here at Steele Center, they're going to be the same whether you're in lane 1 or lane 2. The foundation of this plan, by the way, is the Canvas Learning Management System, which it's not a coincidence that we're adopting that as our teaching tool, whereas 8 of our 10 high schools are doing just that. And it would have worked out ideally perfect in a perfect world where all 10 were using Canvas. 2 are not, and unfortunately for students from those schools, there's going to be, again, it's just one little extra challenge that I'm sure we're all going to work together and overcome. But for their Steele Center classes, they'll be logging onto the Canvas system. There's so much that goes along with that. We've acquired 400 Chromebooks here at Steele Center that are going to be used as classroom sets. So whereas the Steele Center students of the past may have used a hard copy book, we're getting the digital versions of those books, and they'll be loaded onto the Canvas platform, and the students will use those when they use the Chromebook. The Chromebooks are going to be sanitized in between the morning and afternoon sessions. And, again, they're going to be shared. They're a classroom set. Not every student has their own laptop or a Chromebook. If students do have their own device and want to choose to bring that in, we're open to that. Again, there's going to be a lot of room for flexibility as we progress forward. Let's talk about, that's the instructional piece. So hybrid learning involves lab activities, and I mentioned earlier what we call kinesthetic learning or hands-on learning. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There really is no true equal to that However, those students that for their circumstances need remote learning will be given an opportunity to have alternative assignments, and to the extent possible. And we're working with our teachers, and there's going to be a lot of creativity that you're going to see this year. But there will be some hands-on activities. Exactly what, I can't disclose all that. I mean, that's where the work lies. But to whatever extent possible, we can deliver safely. There'll be, some hands-on activities for students that are working remotely, and where we can't do that safely, there's going to be alternative assignments. Again, if you want to be an auto mechanic, is this ideal? Is this perfect? No, it's not. But it's still the best option you have. And I would have that discussion with anybody. Your alternative to that would be to fill up your electives with classes from your sending high school that, for the most part, by and large, are not going to support your ambitions to be an auto mechanic or a welder or a carpenter. And, again, it's so much, less than perfect, but it's still the best option available. And we're going to make this happen. As we go on through the other services, student services, I mentioned our counselor, our work-based learning, those services are still available. We also, this year, for the first year, I'm happy to say, are instituting, some additional supports. We know that as communities have suffered and families have suffered during this period of time, whether it's with hardships because of illness or economic hardships, there's a lot of need for support out there. And so we're instituting here a program that's offered through the Allegheny Health Networks, Jefferson Hospital, through their behavioral health department. And 2 of our school districts already have, this program implemented, Baldwin Whitehall and West Jefferson Hills. But it's called the CHILL program. And it's going to provide 2, mental health clinicians and really support folks that are going to help our students, whether they're here doing the remote, or also they'll be able to help students that are working remotely at home, just to have those additional supports, that ear to lean on, and really to help get connected if there's other outside resources necessary. So those services are going to be available whether you're here in person as a hybrid Lane 1 student or remotely. Learning support is provided. So, we have 2 outstanding educators. Their title is a learning facilitator, and they work with our students that have IEPs. And honestly, I see them working with other kids too. They're real champions of students here in Mrs. Heron and Ms. Seaman, and they're still going to be available and providing supports, whether it's students in Lane 1 or Lane 2. And that may be tele support, contact, Zoom meetings with parents, supports with IEP teachers back in the districts, face-to-face support for students that are in a hybrid, delivery. All those options are still going to be available to kids regardless of which lane they're in. Transportation for hybrid students in Lane 1 is provided by the school district. I've gotten questions, and I'm sure some of you are asking, about driving. And is that still a possibility? It is. I don't have to tell you, if you're familiar with Still Center's campus, we do not have the most robust parking scenario here. We have some parking challenges. So we're working real closely with our supervisor of building and grounds, part of our leadership team here, Mr. Hall, Mrs. White, myself, and looking at some of those options of how we can increase our parking capacity. But that will be an option. We just have more details to work out there, so stay tuned. Lane 1 and Lane 2, if a student needs to switch from one to the other, can they? Yes, they can. And, it may become necessary. And again, we're not going to question the reasons why, but I use the word dynamic, not to refer to this as, giving myself or the Still Center grade as if it's a fantastic plan. Dynamic in the sense that there's a lot of moving parts. It's a very responsive plan that's going to adjust as needed to people's realities. And so can a student that's committing themselves to Lane 1 to start the year, if need be, move to Lane 2? Yes, and vice versa. And there's also industry certifications available in both Lane 1 and Lane 2. So, essentially, as we've unpacked and talked about these 2 lanes, and again, I'm going to jump in here in a little bit to the questions that have come up about some of this, but there's just so much overlap and similarities in what is going to be available to students. There's, of course, no no substitute for what we would prefer, which is for COVID-19 to go away. But I hope that folks understand that, that a lane 2 remote only option, or even the lane 1 option that may have limited days in the building, is still the most productive pathway for a student to again become one of those students that's getting hired out of Steele Center, that's going on to school. And it's not perfect, it won't be perfect, but it's the best option available. There's not a better option available. And again, if someone has come up with an answer, I would love to have it, because myself and 82 of my colleagues that run these schools across the state of Pennsylvania, are not by a stretch, of the belief that we have all the answers. But there's not a better option available under the conditions. Let's talk. So, okay. There's a lot of other moving parts to the plan that again, given a number of constraints, are not going to be present in this presentation tonight. However, again, the whole plan will be unpacked tomorrow and available on the website. I want to shift gears here now. Let me back up. And if you're not aware, let me see if that's on the screen there. My email address is krice@steelecentertech.com. While this Zoom is occurring, there's I see 54 folks that are participating or watching. I will be here in the next portion of our time together. I'm going to be answering some general questions that we've received already by reaching out to all of our families through the website, and that'll hopefully answer some of your questions. However, before we end the Zoom, I'm going to check my email, and if you want to, please email me directly now, and in real time we could do some Q&A. Again, this is an alternative to what we were trying to set up and establish for Q&A at the latest start of our meeting. So let's dive in here for a moment to some of the questions that we received, and I've tried to group these. We have some of which, as I go through, perhaps I've already answered, but again, some of them might need a little more detail. Obviously, if you choose one option, can you choose the other if it's necessary? That's, of course you can. We mentioned that. We talked about, again, the concern. There was a few themes that grew out of these questions, and I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had a magic wand that I could make it all the way that we know we want it to be. But the questions that came in and centered around students getting the essential hands-on learning skills. We've reviewed this and I've talked about it, and I don't have a better answer. Of course, there's no true substitute for that hands-on training here. And under the conditions, if you're choosing the remote-only option for your child, I hate to call them children or young adults, for your student, because of whatever your reasons are, we support that, whether it's personal health or other kinds of concerns, we support that, but that is going to present some limitations. And, there's just no easy, soft way to state that. They are not going to get what they would normally get under these conditions. But isn't that true of all of us? Isn't that true of our life over the last 5 months? And aren't we all sick of it? We can't shop the way we used to shop. We can't gather the way we used to gather. We can't attend sporting activities. I mean, our whole lives have been interrupted. So teaching, career, and technical education is not immune to these things, to these realities. And so perhaps, many of you have been really wishing that you could participate in band festivals over the summer, if you're a family that enjoys marching bands or other kinds of activities and sports, and yet we can't. So those hands-on activities are just, we're going to do the best we can. And we are working hard and diligently, collectively, with our staff, with CTE leaders from other schools in other parts of Pennsylvania and regionally. And we're all trying to come up with what strategies can we employ to offset that. Regarding that issue, we talk about the remote learning. So students, and I want to be very clear about this, students can and students do have access to learn or to attain certifications, industry-based certifications through remote learning. Now that's going to look different for each class. I'll talk specifically at this point about culinary arts and baking. A national credential that's earned here at Still Center is through the National Restaurant Association or Federation. Whoops. Can't remember I think it's National Restaurant Association. And it's called ServSafe. And there's both food handler and food manager. It's against health code for a restaurant or food producing operation in Allegheny County to be open without having a ServSafe certified food manager on site at all times. And so students earn that credential here. That credential can be earned through remote learning. We offer OSHA training for our construction classes, OSHA 10, OSHA 30. Those are web-based trainings. There are certifications that are going to require hands-on training. But it's not accurate to say, well, geez, my student's going to do remote learning, or what if, God forbid, we have a month from now, we all shut down just like we did in the spring, and we have to resort back to online learning for everyone. Our teachers are going to be better at what we do. They certainly learned a lot in the spring, and we're going to be better equipped to offer online learning 100% if we had to do that. And industry certifications will be part of that. So there was a grouping of questions about that. Will my kid earn certificates if they're online? And again, we've got to drill into details for each program. And it's going to mean different things to different programs. But generally speaking, certifications are going to be available to our kids. And I also want to remind you, if you're a senior, and let's say that you're a senior, that's your child's a senior, your student's a senior, young adult, from heating and air conditioning. Heating and air conditioning students begin earning EPA refrigerant recovery certifications in their first year here. By the time they're seniors, it's not unusual for a kid to have earned 1, 2, or even more EPA certifications. So the idea that certifications are a topic that come up frequently whenever I'm speaking with our superintendents and school board members and just other stakeholders. So certifications, there are some culminating certifications, such as in public safety, the EMT certificate. That specifically is going to be a great challenge that we're going to have barriers to, and we're going to have to work through. Nurse aid certification is another one that's going to be a challenge. And, we don't know what the future of the school year holds. We can't pretend to, but there are online certifications. And we're going to explore options for ones that we maybe haven't offered in the past that are offered or available. So hands-on learning, some of those questions, again, I'm answering questions while I'm sharing out the information and hopefully grouping some of these responses in a way that's meaningful for those of you that are asking this kind of questions. Let's get into some of the other questions. Some are very specific, how are we going to coordinate with the high school for the hybrid learning? And again, the student schedule at their high school should mirror what we're doing here. That's our target. There's going to be nuances to that, but if you're attending South Allegheny High School on Mondays and Tuesdays, then they will provide a bus for you here. That was another question about transportation. Yes, buses are being provided here, and districts are following the state required protocols for sanitation of buses, the social distancing protocols. All of those things are being taken into account. And that's why districts are doing things like splitting their kids up into 2 groups. If that's what they feel they need to do. Getting back through here. Looking through, again, we've answered a lot of these. Some of you just gave very supportive comments. We appreciate that. Others, again, the online learning, comes up with the challenges it's faced by, and it is a challenge. It is a challenge. But it's we don't have that option. So unlike the spring with the hybrid option, whereas in the spring we were remote only, the students under hybrid will be getting hands-on training under hybrid. And so if you feel that strongly, and if you're willing to, select the hybrid option, that's what you're going to get. Those that are remote only for whatever reason are going to get those alternatives. Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of those. Again, if students want to, a question came up about classes. So again, I want to remind you that our website contains a lot of information. We'll be up and running full swing here basically the 17th. Our whole staff is back. There'll be some staff coming in next week, couple this week. Our school counselor and our student services team are fielding calls and inquiries like they do every summer regarding switching classes. So if you believe you were put in the wrong class when you got some notification, then again, we're allowing for that, to change the schedules. That's something that we do every year. There's additional mail coming to you, and it's delayed, and it's only delayed by necessity, that will give you more startup information for resuming your classes. That's scheduled to go out this week, so you should have it by the beginning of next week. And again, it's the timeliness of this is obviously not ideal. I do want to mention that we just made a recent change, and it's pending. Our board will approve it next week. But our first day for students is now moving from the 24th of August to the 27th. A number of our districts modified their, let me go ahead and end this PowerPoint. A number of our member districts changed their start dates, and so ours was adjusted to kind of reflect those changes. So that's going to provide a couple of additional days for students to prepare before they come. Again, that'll allow for you to you'll have at least 2 weeks once you receive your information packets from us. That'll be mailed out later this week, just with some more detailed information about your class and your classes. And also, I want to point out, if you're unsure about just some of the nature of the class, if there's those of you that are coming here hybrid, you may need to purchase boots and things like that. Go to our website, onto the page for your class, whether you're welding, carpentry, and there's information contained on those websites regarding those class requirements and the syllabus and so on. So that information really doesn't change regardless of our reopening plans. We are going to, again, make people wear masks. We're going to follow all those guidelines. I had parents concerned in their questions about the enforcing social distancing. We're going to, again, do the absolute very best to, just like your member school district high schools are going to do regarding those kinds of issues. We're not looking to create, we want, our interactions with students regarding this to be of a supportive rather than a punitive nature. We have to remind students this is in their best interest. And, well, Mr. Rice, I can't wear a mask. It's a hard time. Well, we have face shields for you. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why it's important here that not only do we set a standard for what's expected and have to follow these guidelines, but we've got to provide those resources. And so for individuals or folks that have issues with the actual facial mask itself, you're gonna wear a shield. We're gonna provide it for you. So those are some of the other questions. Again, as I go through, there's a whole lot of specific questions. We will be getting back to you individually. Those of you that put phone numbers in here and ask detailed questions, you want a phone call response or a specific email response, we'll be giving you those. I think that pretty much covers the grouping of questions that we got. Again, we thank you all so much. The last time I checked, we have 750 students registered to begin studies at Steele Center this fall. And I think that we were approaching 400 responses on the survey, and we have till Friday. So we're going to put out another automated call to remind families to go and take that survey. And we're going to probably push it out again on our social media or other mechanisms that we have to communicate. At this point, I'm going to conclude that part of it, and I wanted to keep the whole presentation to an hour. We're right at that hour mark. I wanted to present for about a half hour and answer questions. I am going to hold true to my word and go into my email and see if I did get any specific emails sent to me during this time. So, got a couple. Let's take a look here. Okay, so there was an email regarding the live stream. Again, the live stream is going to be available Again, I appear at the largest number of folks on here were maybe 54 at one time, 55 as I could tell. But it's going to be available for watching afterwards. So there's that. Go back to another question came in. A number of questions are coming in. If we filled out the survey for lane 2 remote, is that selection for the start of school year? So you can adjust. Again, that question came into us from a parent. If you've already selected lane 2, can you adjust? The answer is yes. As the purpose of that survey is as we get closer, we're trying to organize and make sure that we're dividing our students correctly, that we're going to be prepared for appropriate social distancing. One of the aspects of our plan, is that we went through our maintenance department and leadership team member there, Mr. Hall. We looked at square footage in each of our program areas, classroom areas, lab areas, and we needed to ensure that we had an appropriate amount of square footage that would support the social distancing requirements. And in certain areas, depending on how many kids are coming hybrid, we may need to move those classes, for example, to another area of the building where they can promote the social distancing while they're doing their lectures. On your son or daughter, your child, student coming here. However, there is still some flexibility if you selected one of those options. Next question coming in here. Okay, well, this is some feedback. Thank you to parent from Bethel Park for your positive feedback. I appreciate that. And again, this is not perfect. And if you're a new parent to this system, you're going to find out, as a leader here, executive director, I'm very humbled and honored to be in the position that I have and the responsibilities that's been entrusted in me, but I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. And I'll take a compliment where I can get one, quite honestly. What I am is I'm a person that's committed to career and technical education. I'm a school administrator that's committed to supporting his staff. I do the very best I can in working with our school board members, who, by the way, are also an incredibly supportive and very engaged group of individuals. These are volunteer members of your school board. Not only are they serve on the school board of Bethel Park and South Park and all of our districts, Elizabeth Forward, but they take on the additional volunteer responsibility to sit on this board. And, they're all individuals that are invested. They really want to see what's great for their communities. And they know Steele Center is an important, vital part of generating the future success of students within their school districts. So it really starts with that every member of the team here, as I mentioned earlier, the staff, our school board members, your superintendent of schools from each of your high school or school districts, along with your high school principals, counselors. We don't do anything here by ourselves in isolation. It really is a team. But thank you for the compliment. Actually got 2 compliments, so thank you both, parent from Baldwin and from Bethel Park. Hybrid lane. We're going to choose hybrid lane Thursday, Friday. Will remote learning occur Monday? Yes. So I've got to put some updated guidance out about that. That letter, honestly, when I have received a question before our session this evening, and I was in a meeting earlier this afternoon or late afternoon, early evening, and there's some word issues with what lane 1 describes. So it would make it appear that that students are only going to be educated on the days that they go to their high school and Wednesdays remotely. That's not true. You will be learning here remotely on the days you're not here. So let's talk, for example, Elizabeth Forward. If an Elizabeth Forward student is going to Elizabeth Forward on Thursdays and Fridays, they will be engaged in learning activities in their class here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And is the learning activities going to be an exact replication or match for what's happening here in the building on those days? They can be, but they're not necessarily going to be. There's going to be some independent assignments. There's going to be some work that's going to be assigned to students. There's going to be pre-recorded presentations. There's going to be, again, our teachers are incredibly gifted and talented and creative, and they're going to make those days meaningful. In some cases, it may involve what we call synchronous instruction, or instruction that's happening live in real time. It really is going to vary. And we have a number of challenges to work through. We had a meeting just prior to this this presentation tonight, with our Federation leadership, and our teachers here, are members of the American Federation of Teachers. I could tell you that they're a very reasonable and very caring, part of our operation is working through those labor issues. And our teachers and members of that group, that leadership group, have very real concerns. And it really starts with safety and well-being of their students. And they hold their students' learning in high regard. And we're working really collaboratively, with the leadership of our federation. I'm very confident that we're going to be able to work through those kinds of things. But yes, you will be able to learn the days that you're not here remotely. And it's going to vary. What's going to work for one particular class here, for example, our advertising and design class is really a technology-driven course, right? And so there's it's going to mean something different for those students than it does for our electrical construction students or our auto mechanic students, and so on and so forth. Our health assistant students, their first year curriculum, it's very, it's not as much hands-on perhaps as you may imagine it is. It's a lot of anatomy and physiology. It's medical terminology. So, that being delivered in a remote fashion, or at least remote 3 days a week with being here in the building the other 2 days, that's going to look different for those health students and future medical professionals than it does for our heating and air technicians. And again, we're certainly not of the opinion that this is the absolute best way to become trained in these fields, but it is the best way that's available under the conditions. And that's a guarantee. I tell you that. Can't say it enough. More questions from the webs or from email coming in here. Right. So again, the question comes from a parent from TJ, and under the hybrid option, we will be following. So our districts are modifying their plans, and it is hard to keep up with all of their changes. But the days that your child, your son or daughter, student, is going to be getting on that bus or getting out of the car and walking into their high school, those are the days that they're going to be coming here to. So if that's going to mean something different for TJ students as it means for Elizabeth Forward, as it means for South Park. And in some cases, those students may be here more than 2 days a week. We've got to maintain continuity with the school districts. And so, depending on the district and depending on the plan that the student is selected at their district, that's going to be how we work through that. Next. So a question comes in. Let's say between now and August 27th, your school district decides that they are online only, 100%. And quite honestly, that's a possibility, folks. I can tell you through I've lost track a long time ago how many hours of meetings with the superintendents of our school districts, of your school districts. No one has a real appetite to want to go online only. We all really we know kids learn best, and especially the kids that we're talking about, your student, when they elect to come to Steele Center, they're not signing on to online training. They're signing on to come, and they want to grab that welding torch and learn how to weld. They want to chop, those vegetables and learn how to make, outstanding delicacies and culinary. That's why. So what's going to happen for those? It is a possibility. None of the districts really want that to be the case. However, given all the circumstances and realities, that is. So what happens to those kids? And that's a question I'm going to say that right now is still an open issue, because Steele Center does not function as a school unto itself. We function as an extension of your school district. And if your school district's planning, if your school district's board approved plan is that they're educating students only online, then I'm inclined to think that's going to also determine how they engage with their Still Center curriculum. Uh, Again, I hope you understand the curriculum is going to be the same, whether they're in person or at home. The instructional, the direct instruction, the resources available, handout testing. The huge difference, obvious difference, is the alternative assignments for those that are not in person. And I haven't given up yet on some really creative ways, and I don't want to put the what did I say, let the cat out of the bag. I'm not a believer of putting things out there before they're true, but I've got some issues to work through with one of our teacher committees, and really came on to a great strategy that another school east of here is using, and a few counties away, north of here, northeast of here, that I think has a lot of promise, and it's going to involve Steel Center supplying, some materials and sending them home or having them picked up for students to do some hands-on learning at home. So it's an idea that really our teachers have been asking about here on our committee. It's one I didn't really believe it would be feasible, but after I heard what I heard today from one of my colleagues, up in the northeast part of the state, I think we may be able to pull some of that off. So to get back to that question about, you're likely going to have to do online to match your sending school, your high school. And as unfortunate as that is, that's probably, but again, it's an open issue. It's an open issue. If I had to guess, that's my best answer at 8:43 on August the 4th. Let's go back to the emails. And great questions. Keep sending them in. If we do hybrid, Machagos, that's Wednesday, Thursday. What day is Levita? So if their high school is and again, I don't know which district this is. Okay, I'm seeing that. Yeah, I was understanding that, and I don't want to put misinformation out there, but the person that sent me that said that and I can respond to the email, that they believe it's Wednesdays and Thursdays. We can't match every school district schedule. What we did is we tried to match the majority of our students' schedules in the best and most effective way. So what I expect to happen on days, if your student is going to their high school on Wednesday and we're not here, and they're off, say on Fridays, then they will come here on Friday. And the districts have told me that they will provide transportation for those students on those days, because they obviously won't be sending a bus to Steel Center on that Wednesday, and that's something we're going to work through with each district. So I hope that's a sufficient answer. Next question. Yeah, so if I choose online for the student at their high school, can they choose to come here in person? And honestly, I'm going to say that's up to the high school. That's up to the district. We work collaboratively with them. We don't want to interfere with their reopening plans and policies. And so that's an issue we're going to have to work. If the district is agreeable to that, we are. But again, we it's Steel Center serve the districts, and we can't, put things in place that come into conflict with their policies regarding reopening or their board approved plans. So that really is going to depend on your member district. And I would encourage you, with that question, or anyone that has that question, to call your high school, reach out to your district and ask them that question. But it's a great question. Next question is, okay. How can you guarantee that the cleaning protocols at Steel Center are going to be adequate to prevent COVID-19? It's a great question, and I certainly don't fault you for asking it. There are no guarantees. There are no guarantees with COVID-19, zero. The only guarantee is that it's a pain to all of us. The only guarantee is that it's caused a headache and we're all sick of it. I can tell you that. The protocols we're putting in place, we're doing, and I can't underscore enough the fact that we have an incredibly caring and talented staff. That's what makes Steel Center a special place. Really, it's not the building, it's not the equipment. If I hit the lottery and could retire right now and I'm gone, Steel Center is going to be an awesome place, because of the whole team, and So this team of talented, caring people, they're all going to give their very best effort to ensure that we take the training that Steel Center is going to provide and that we do our parts. If that's wiping down the doorknob when my kids leave the room in my classroom, I'm going to wipe it down with that correct chemically, treated, I believe it's Clorox wipes or whatever we have. Mr. Hall is in charge of that part of it. That tool room is going to have the hydrostatic, hydroelectrostatic cleaning go in there to mist, fog, to clean those tools. And we're following all those recommendations. But can I give a 100% guarantee? I can't. And if you've been out and about in the world, when you go to Aldi's, when you go to Giant Eagle or any of these stores, we got to touch a keypad using our card. We touch a cart that I believe has been wiped down. I wipe them down myself. Am I guaranteed? Not, there's no guarantees, but we're trying the best we can. And I thank you for that question. We've really gone long here, longer than I expected. And I don't know if this was as helpful as you imagined. If you those of you that believed you received benefit from this, that was our goal. If you still have more questions, two things. Again, reach out via email. That's probably the best way to reach me. You could try calling here at the school. And I am here often, long days and nights, and I do the best to get back to you. But, it's probably easier to just click or return to an email. But I definitely have been calling parents back and students even. And pay attention to the website. The reopening portion, the reopening page is going to be up and running here within days. And all the updated information is going to be on there as it changes. Answer your phones when you see that Steel Center phone number. I think it comes up. Caller ID 412-469-3200, I believe is what it comes up as. Answer it. It's important messages. We'll also send out text messages using Blackboard Connect. And if you're on Facebook, Twitter, Twitter is not as active. Facebook is probably the best way between the social media platforms to keep up with us. What can I say? I just want to thank you for spending, committing to this time you've spent here this evening, having questions answered. We're going to get through this together. If it's necessary, I'll schedule another live stream. Most likely will. One other thing that came up too, again, a question earlier today, wasn't on the log. We typically have a new student orientation, and we still are planning and intending to do that. Much as you would imagine, like our start date just changed. We're tweaking that process now, but we're going to put that messaging out as soon as we can. And make available some orientation process for our new students. I thank you all for choosing to attend Steel Center, make it part of your high school education, part of your high school experience. You're jumping on with us or staying on the pathway to success, and you're to be commended for that. We are here for you. You're going to have a lot of support as we get through this process to reopen school. And as we walk step by step, day by day together, we're going to be fine. And I guess if I could leave you with one thought, it really is, I talked to our staff last week at a staff meeting about this. There's a group of human beings in the United States, many of which are deceased. My grandmother was part of this group. And likely, you all have relatives, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. They're a part of what is referred to in this country as the greatest generation. And they truly, are looked at that way. Very dynamic people, very hardworking. But they became the greatest generation, not by birth. They became the greatest generation by opportunity. And at the turn of the last century, or earlier parts of the last century, and really in the 20s and 30s, our country went into what was called the Great Depression. And we were coming out of World War I, we were facing World War II, and there was just so much adversity. And really, folks during the Depression, my grandmother would tell me these stories about the hardships financially and how she couldn't afford to buy my father, a 3-cent ice cream cone, and it broke her heart. And I remember those stories. They impacted me. And they got through that time. We've been inconvenienced here. Probably you're not interested, to know, but I'll mention, I love going to rock concerts. Something I enjoy each summer. Outdoor concerts at South Park, at Stage AE. I just really enjoy the Arts Festival, 3 Rivers. And woe is me. I didn't get to go to concerts this summer. A lot of us have had hardships, but some of the hardships are probably more of an inconvenience. And the Great Depression lasted, a few years. It wasn't a singular event. And what it did for that generation is it caused them to grow in terms of grit and determination. They realized what's important in life. And certainly in the times that we're in now, I think that many of us have been put in that same predicament. And what started out as just a real inconvenience is now becoming a challenge for us, but it's also an opportunity for us to overcome barriers and maybe to become this century's great generation. We know here at Still Center, we believe in our students, we believe in our staff, and we know we can absolutely make it through this reopening and the challenges we face this year. So it's through that lens that I want to leave you with those thoughts. We're going to take a deep breath each day, and we're going to get through one step at a time, each challenge at a time, one lesson at a time, one remote learning activity at a time, one hybrid group of students coming in the door at a time, one COVID-19 positive case at a time, one quarantine at a time. Whatever we face, we will get through it, and we're going to get through it together, and we're going to be stronger, not in spite of it, but because of it. So thank you all for your time this evening. And again, please keep in touch via email and look for information from us. And that's what I'll close with here. Thank you. See, there's no real, what do you call it? Grand finale. There's no screen to share. There we go. Let me just put something up on the screen. Do that. Okay, so we stop the screen share and we want to stop the Zoom. Good night, everyone.